Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian. 2020 is a special year, at least for most of us, who have never experienced a global pandemic. It exacerbated almost all the other endemic problems that the world has facing. Deficit of trust, equality, and wealth. At a time when multilateralism is needed the most, there's a clear deficit of that too. Experienced and responsible diplomats whose jobs are not only safeguarding the national interests of their own countries, but also to find common ground with others, are in urgent need. Recently, I talked to two of them. They're both working here in Beijing. They're both from Europe. Their distinctive countries are, just like everybody else, struggling with the challenges of the pandemic, economic recovery, and geopolitics. Their work in China is about building a bridge between their home countries and China. When things are rapidly changing every day on all fronts, how are they holding up to their duties and responsibilities? First up, French ambassador to China, Laurent Bili. After working in Brazil and Turkey, he's now in China. Like any experienced diplomat, he's getting more interested in the culture he is working with. Listening to him talking about contemporary Chinese artists in the embassy room, one could sense this cultural immersion.
Quite proud of this one, the Wuchi, and because it's also remind me my youth center when I was with Jacques Chirac. He was always part of the state visit, and he was such a personality. You had something when you were discussing or seeing him, something so gentle, so a real natural charisma. Yeah. Despite being a person maybe discreet, not outspoken, but you could feel his energy and his talent. So
you were talking to him earlier?
I was talking to him, but as a junior diplomat with a lot of caution, and but he was always kind to everybody in his visit. And Tian is also a charming person, living between France and China, and I really love that painting, and I've got difficulty to imagine that room without that painting.
Did you tell Yan Peiming that I'm always looking at you into your eyes?
No, but since we have this daughter as an intern,
yes.
I think I'm working on it to make my declaration when the time's come. Well, there is obviously differences in our society, in our systems, but we have to also think about a positive agenda, and positive agenda can be what we do together in a foreign stage, like climate change or development policy, but it's also about cultural exchanges, action of students. I hope in that regard that all the difficulties that we have at the present time for circulation, mobility of people will be soon resolved. But in our side, we are working a lot to maintain a high level of presence in that sector. I mentioned already Impression Soleil Levant, but we had also more than 100 events during the month of environment, China-France month on the environment. We had Mr. La Cascade, which have been accepting to do a quarantine in order to be able to present 8 theater sessions. We had also the Panorama or Film Festival, which we have been able to organize this year, even if it's of course without the presence of some actors or actresses from the French side. So we really think that these kind of events are very important. And for next year, we are still working on the year of tourism between France and China. I don't know exactly which form it will take because there is a certain degree of uncertainty, but there is a room for doing more in that field.
When you say one has to be creative, flexible, and with a lot of agility these days in order to make things happen, can you help us to understand how you are doing it on your daily life or on your daily work?
Oh, on my daily work.
Big sigh. Did I hear?
On my daily work, we had a year which was very different. At the beginning of the year, I was working on the visit of my ministers, 2 in January. By the end of January, I was evacuating French citizens and European citizens from Wuhan. Later on, I was organizing the embassy to be able to continue to work under uncertain circumstances. Then we transform ourselves in a place to buy masks and other medical equipment. Then we focus on the resuming of activity of a French firm in China, then on the possibility for teachers to come back in order to ensure that French community, French business will be comfortable to work in China. And then after we were back on some kind of normal, but at the same time while doing all these main focus of activities, trying to maintain political dialogue, phone calls between our leaders, exhibition. I think one of the nice exhibitions that we had in Shanghai, the one of Monet, Impression Soleil Levant. So it has been a demanding year, but also exciting because it's for the good cause of our friendship.
But I guess it's such a test for any diplomat, particularly diplomats coming from a country like yours, which has enormous amount of communication and interaction with China.
It was, but again, it's for the good cause, and we enjoy a good degree of dialogue, even if sometimes it was a bit tougher, like on flight connectivity, things like that. But at the end, I think things are progressively back as normal as they can, according to circumstances.
I just wonder, you know, to you, longtime diplomat, what is the quality that you would cherish also right now?
Well, first of all, thanks for the comments. One of the depressing...
behind your back, I would say the same.
One of the depressing aspects of the work of a diplomat is that endless work, because you always feel that you could do more, and I wish I had a longer day, longer week, longer month to be able to work more for our cooperation. But so I think what I really like in China is that there is so many talents, so many people. We are very motivated to work, to open new avenues. And I feel sometimes that I should do more, that I should be able to even be more present. But to be a good diplomat, I think that curiosity and that will to do things is the main thing. And China is a wonderful country because there is so many people that you want to work with.
So, Mr. Ambassador, how to be an expert while at the same time involved yet still keep a distance when providing policy suggestions? That's a very interesting combination of feelings to me. How are you seeing these kinds of combinations?
It's certainly a challenge. I don't pretend to be a specialist about China. I'm also the head of a team which is combining a lot of talents coming from different sectors. I think as the French embassy in China, I've got the privilege to be able to have the best also of our system, candidating for China and being present and supporting me. For me to be a specialist, somehow it's sometimes just to have more questions than the others. And we have always to be modest, and I think the best way to do our work is to keep that degree of modesty about what we know and what we can achieve.
They say if you're in China for 1 week, one could well write a book. Well, for 1 month, people have to ponder and think, what shall I write home about? But for 1 year, things are getting a little bit more complicated, and therefore it's hard to put down words to describe exactly what's going on as if they could be described. Mr. Ambassador, you're already here for more than 1 year. I wonder, how would you write home about this country that you've been working so hard in over the past 1 year?
Well, so that year was a bit peculiar, and for a few months I've been knowing Shaoyang quite well, and the rest of China less, I will say, because it was so impossible to travel.
Yeah.
But I think it's people back in Europe, in France, don't always imagine the rhythm and the rapidity of a change in China. The other day I was in Hangzhou, and I've seen a small, nice place where it was a bio shop, having product from direct from the farm in Yunnan. And I think when you think about that, people will say, well, that happened in Paris, where you have these kind of things. But they don't think yet that Hangzhou people are having exactly the same kind of demand of quality and
desire about their life.
And we are becoming closer. China's growth, China's change of way of life is impressing. And there is a lot of things that we can do also together in that regard, because France is also a lot about art de vivre, about a way of having quality products. And that's another challenge for me, to bring wine, cheese, a lot of good food, good meat to the Chinese market, because I think we are arriving at a moment where we are, of course, from two different continents, but our desires are not that different.
French ambassador to China. China and France, along with 27-nation European Union, have made headway in banding together against COVID-19, climate change, cutthroat global trade, and other common challenges. But how does the whole year 2020 stand out in the minds of the French envoy? What has he learned so far serving his post in China? Let's listen.
From the very beginning, we tried to maintain a kind of normality in our cooperation and to be present in different fronts. Of course, it's much easier since, let's say, April. And since September, I start again to travel to meet as much people as I can, to be in contact with local initiative and to boost our bilateral cooperation.
As you said, April to May, there are already a lot of interactions between the two sides, China and France. And the Paris Peace Forum is one of those that attracts a lot of people's eyes. I know in the forum you talk a lot about unity, and France emphasized much on this topic. Tell me more about what kind of unity do you think, Mr. Ambassador, is urgently needed in this circumstance?
Well, the Forum of Paris in 11th or 13th of November was a great achievement, because despite also the pandemic, we managed to organize it, to have more than 50 heads of state participating, including President Xi, which was one of the first to speak in the conference, but also 12,000 actors, a lot of work session. And the main theme of the summit was really to think about the day after, how to rebuild the economy, how to make us work together in the field of health. One of the interesting achievements was the mobilization about COVAX and Act A for the vaccination, to provide vaccination to all the world in an equal way. But there were also other forums like the Development Bank Forum, shared about a common future on financing of the ODA, which was also a very important one. We had one on Paris School on cyber security. So a lot of aspects to make our world better and to work together.
How pragmatic is it? I mean, when you think about the circumstances we're still facing today, even though vaccines roll out for emergency use, but it seems to be still quite some way before we can really get there.
Of course, very some way, but some time to get there. But already to work together on like financing common for ODA, that's very important, because we are seeing for almost the next 10, 20 years about how to help people in need and have new ways of doing it. And the interest of Paris in Peace Forum is also that it's not only states, but it's also private sector, NGO. There is an agenda for solutions. More than 100 projects were presented, funded. And so I think it's a very pragmatic and constructive way to work together.
And this has been the platform of China-France cooperation, and of course also France reaching out to the rest of the world.
Yes, from the very beginning, China has been present in the forum, and its contribution is much appreciated. And of course, the topics are also evolving, because this year, obviously, we couldn't avoid to be focusing on the pandemic and the way to overcome it. But I think as a forum and a way of organizing the world, a way of exchanging, of taking new commitments, but commitments coming from different sectors of the society, that's a really innovative way of working. And in this time of also confrontation, to have so many actors discussing very freely, it really makes a difference.
When it comes to unity, of course, it creates opportunity for cooperation. What kinds of pragmatic cooperation do you think there exist for the opportunities between China and France?
Between China and France, and I will say between China and the European Union, because somehow there is a common ground between two. I think climate change, biodiversity is certainly one of the most promising sector of cooperation. Last year, when President Macron was in Paris, we have the Beijing call for climate and biodiversity. It was a very important document. We are implementing it. We see new commitments from China. President Xi's speech in the UN General Assembly is a declaration for the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement. And so we see that there is a dynamic, and on the ground also we exchange a lot. Our Agence Française de Développement, or Development Bank, is financing very concrete projects with World Bank or IIB. So there is a lot of things going on, and I think there is even more that can be done with a view to work together for Kunming COP15, for Glasgow COP26, and so I think it's one of really the top priority. We also think that we can do more regarding Africa and the alleviation of debt in Africa. All countries are being targeted. Europe is heavily targeted, France is heavily targeted, China is getting better. But for the less developing country, especially in Africa, the pandemic is really a very, very hard challenge. And we really have to help these countries to overcome the challenges. And so we need to make a common effort on debt alleviation.
But, you know, people have to prioritize. So at this moment, how do you think you can work on so many different fronts all at the same time under difficult circumstances?
I don't think it's that difficult because we have such a tradition of cooperation together. We have a strategic dialogue already going on, I think, for 20 years. We have diplomatic relations going on for nearly 60 years. So we have mechanism to exchange notes on many subjects. Of course, it's more difficult these days because we have to do it in video conference and not in direct contact. But there is a certain degree of trust between actors because they know each other from previous years of cooperation. So it's not that difficult to have many subjects on the table.
China has been committed to carbon neutral by the year 2060. So it seems that there's already quite some commitment there. Of course, China is now working on the specific plans to reach there. How is China and France going to be able to look at the long term and the short term?
There is a lot that we can do in terms of research and new technology. And regarding especially the French firm in China, a lot of them are mobilized on smart cities, on clean energy. And that's certainly one of the sectors where we want to push cooperation. We had two projects of clean city, green city, one in Chengdu and one in Wuhan, and that's clearly the kind of project that we are going to push in the future. And as a way to bridge also relation between firms of both sides and to work together and bring new solutions.
So, sir, how do you see the current stage of rollout of emergency use of vaccination? And how is France and China looking at the future cooperation in pandemic prevention and control?
As you said, France is certainly one of the main actors on that front. We really committed heavily financially with more than 510 million for ACT-A and 100 million euros for COVAX. China has been declaring its participation to the initiative. We hope that it will join us also for the multilateral part of the financing. But having said that, we are organizing a plan for vaccination in our own countries, starting by elderly people and medical people, and it will start in vulnerable groups. It will start in January. Spring, we will enlarge it to new sectors. And the other issue is clearly to provide vaccinations to other parts of the world where there is challenges. And that's really a part where I think our countries can work together.
What do you think could be some of the most important tasks right now in order to reach there, as you just mentioned, from France's perspective?
I think the question of financing is a key because according to the WHO, there is still quite a gap despite the last announcements in the Paris Forum. And so new financing, new collective financing for the most vulnerable is certainly key.
Talking about both climate change and the pandemic prevention and control, all of these subjects need urgently international cooperation. But we have seen quite some challenging years earlier as a result of lack of cooperation and collaboration. Mr. Ambassador, how do you think things might evolve from now on? After all, we have learned our lessons.
First of all, I think despite some political speeches of skepticism about climate change in some countries, most of the actors, being economic or cities, even provinces in some countries or states in some countries, have been quite active. And I think there is a kind of good sense in public opinion that there is a link between disorder of the world, being pandemia, being excessive natural events, and climate change. And there is much more mobilization today. I think the link is more obvious today than maybe it was yesterday, that even it was at the time of the Paris Agreement. And of course, the change of the US administration is probably going to bring more consensus in the world regarding the need to act together.